Hello and welcome to League of Gamers, the channel that brings you the latest video game news and top players out there. If you're a fan of third-person perspective video games, then we have the most anticipated releases in 2020. You'll find everything from superhero titles to narrative-driven adventure games. League of Gamers always has interesting content news, so subscribe to be a part of our channel and hit that bell icon to be the first to know when our new video goes up. Now let's begin with the top 10 best third-person games of 2020. Number 10, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. On PC, PS4, Xbox One, and PS5. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is an open-world action-adventure game structured around several main story arcs and numerous optional side quests called world events. The player takes on the role of Eivor, a Viking raider, as they lead their fellow Vikings against the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. The player has the choice of playing Eivor either as female, male, or letting the game alternate between the two at key moments in the story. They can customize Eivor's hair, war paint, clothing, armor, and tattoos. The variety of weapons available to the player has been expanded to include weapons such as flails and greatswords. Combat has been changed to allow dual wielding of almost any weapon, including shields, and every piece of gear that the player collects is unique. The social stealth concept from earlier Assassin's Creed games returns. Eivor can hide from enemies not only in stationary environmental objects, but can pull down their hood and slip into certain crowds to use them as cover. Eivor can feign death, use their raven to distract guards, and can access a hidden blade for near instantaneous assassinations. The game's key bosses all, through specific combinations of approaches, tactics, and weapon selection, can be assassinated through a single attack, but it can still be defeated through numerous other routes. Number 9, Immortals Phoenix Rising, on PC, PS4, and PS5. Immortals is an action-adventure video game played from a third-person perspective. At the beginning of the game, players can customize the gender, voice, and appearances of Phoenix using Aphrodite's beauty chair. At any point in the game, they can return to the beauty chair and customize Phoenix. The game is set in a large open world, consisting of 7 distinct regions inspired by the Greek gods. The player character is accompanied by a companion bird named Phosphor, which can identify locations of interest on the map. Phoenix can traverse the world quickly through climbing cliffs, riding on a mount, and flying using the wings of Daedalus. As players explore the world, they would encounter rifts that would teleport them to Vaults of Tartarus, which are a series of platforming changes that require players to utilize both Phoenix's combat and traversal abilities. The world of the Golden Isles is occupied with various enemies inspired by Greek mythology, including minotaurs to cyclopses. There are 2 modes of melee attack. Light attacks with a sword are fast but weak, and heavy attacks with a hammer are slow but strong. Phoenix can also use bows and arrows to defeat enemies. Players will need to keep a close eye on Phoenix's stamina during combat, as they will become exhausted when they continually attack. Armor and weapons can also be upgraded by collecting sufficient crafting resources in the game's world. Number 8, Dragon Ball Z, Kakarot, for PC and PS4. This game follows the main protagonist Goku and the Z Fighters. Unlike most of the games in the franchise, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is both a role-playing game and a fighting game. The player can do more than just battle their opponents. They can fish, collect Zorbs, eat, drive around with their hover car, train, and even put characters in soul emblems, as if the player is part of the surrounding Dragon Ball world. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot currently follows the main story of the Dragon Ball Z series, with some newly added moments. The game is broken into 4 storylines, beginning with the first chapter known as the Saiyan Saga, followed by the Namek Saga, continued with the Android Saga. During the Android Saga, the player acquires their hover car, and concluding with the Buu Saga. There are currently 7 playable characters in Dragon Ball Z Kakarot that the player will guide through the story. These include Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, Future Trunks, Gotenks, and Vegito. As the player progresses through the game, they will unlock new characters to play. Number 7, Final Fantasy VII Remake, on the PS4. The Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of the first in a planned series of games remaking the 1997 PlayStation game Final Fantasy VII. It covers the first section of the original game, set in the metropolis Midgar, Tim Rogers of Action Button. Players controlled Cloud Strife, a former Shinra soldier turned mercenary who joins the eco-terrorist group Avalanche to fight the Shinra Corporation, who have been draining the planet's life energy. Every element has been remade using real-life polygonal graphics as opposed to the pre-rendered environments of the original. The story includes major expansions to character development and some notable plot additions. The game features an altered active time battle system from the original, which fills up or can fill faster with attacks. Once it is filled, the player can halt the action and use special abilities such as magic, items, and special moves. The player can switch between party members at any time during battle. Each party member has their skills, such as Cloud's close-quarter melee attacks and Barrett's long-range distance attacks. Players can use magic and summons of large creatures, and the limit break gauge allows characters to perform more powerful attacks once charged. While the game has more real-time elements, the strategic elements still remain, such as selecting weapons and magic for each character to wield. Number 6. Gangshin Impact for PC, PS4, and iOS. Genshin Impact is an open-world action role-play game that allows the player to control one of 4 interchangeable characters in a party. Switching between characters can be done quickly and during combat to the player to use several different combinations of skills and attacks. In addition to exploration, the player can attempt various challenges for rewards. Scattered across Tebet are highly powerful challenges that reward highly valuable resources, but claiming them uses up a currency called resin, which slowly regenerates over time. Completing these challenges grants the player progress towards increasing their adventure rank, which in turn unlocks new quests, challenges, and raises the world level. The world level is a measure of how strong the enemies within the world are and the rarity of rewards that defeating them gives. The player can control their character and perform actions such as running, climbing, swimming, and gliding, which is limited by stamina. Many teleportation nodes exist throughout the world that players can warp to, and statues known as the Statues of the Seven can heal and revive characters and provide benefits such as increasing player stamina. Items such as food and ore may be procured from the open world, while enemies and treasure chests drop other types of resources that may be used in enhancing a character's strength. We hope you are enjoying the video, but make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Click that bell icon to stay up to date on when we post new videos and be the first to watch. Enjoy the rest of the video. Number 5. The Last of Us Part 2 on PS4. The Last of Us Part 2 is an action-adventure game played from a third-person perspective, featuring elements of the survivor horror genre. The player traverses post-apocalyptic environments such as buildings and forests to advance the story. The player can use firearms, improvised weapons, and stealth to defend against the hostile humans and cannibalistic creatures infected by a mutated strain of the cordyceps fungus. Control intermittent switches between Ellie and Abby. The player also briefly controls Joel in the opening sequence. The nimble nature of the player character introduces platforming elements to the game, allowing the player to jump and climb to traverse environments and gain advantages during combat. In combat, the player can use long-range weapons such as rifles and bows, and short-range weapons such as pistols or revolvers. The player can scavenge limited-use melee weapons such as machetes and hammers, and throw bricks and bottles to distract or attack enemies. The player can attack enemies directly. They could also use stealth to attack undetected or sneak past the enemies. The player may be impaled by an arrow, which will progressively decrease their health meter and disables listen mode until removed when in cover. Player companions such as Dina assist in combat by killing enemies or announcing their location. Number 4. Demon's Souls Remake on the PS5. Demon's Souls is an action role-play game developed by Bluepoint Games with assistance from SIE Japan Studio. The game was released as a launch title for the PS5 in November 2020. The game features new weapons, armors, and rings, and new items called grains, which give the player a temporary resistance to effects such as poison, fire, and bleeding. As with the original, players are limited in how much they can carry before their character becomes over-encumbered. and some aspects of this encumbered system have been adjusted. In the game, healing grasses have no weight, so players could potentially carry hundreds of them. In the remake, these healing items now have a weight associated with them, so that the amount players can carry is significantly lessened, and more potent grasses weigh more than less effective ones. One new feature, called Fractured World, is a mirror mode that reverses the layout of environments. The game also includes a photo mode. Filters from the photo mode can be used during gameplay, including a classic mode filter intended to evoke the look of the original PlayStation 3 game. The character creation feature also has been updated with many more options for customization. Number 3. SpiderMan Miles Morales for PS5 and PS4. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales is a 2020 action-adventure game developed by Insomniac Games and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment for the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. The game shares most of its environment and core gameplay with its predecessor. Miles Morales begins with the ability to use webs to swing, attack enemies, and crawl and run on walls. At key points in the storyline, it gains additional abilities, including Venom Blast, the ability to incapacitate its enemies with bioelectricity and charge or drain electronics, Camouflage, or your temporary invisibility, and Mega Venom Blast, the ability to attack multiple enemies nearby in a massive explosion of bioelectricity. Other moves, such as the Venom Dash or Venom Jump, are unlocked either during the story or through a skill tree. Miles also has access to his unique gadgets: remote mines that can attach to enemies or electronic panels, a device that can summon holographic fighters to help him in his combat, and gravity wells that can trap multiple enemies and make them easier to hit. Number 2. Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord for the PC. The player builds up a party of soldiers and performs quests on an overhead campaign map, with battles being played out on the battlefields that allow the player to personally engage in combat alongside their troops. Bannerlord, however, includes significant improvements to numerous elements of gameplay. Sieges in Bannerlord are intended to be more strategic than they were in Warband. The player may construct a variety of different siege engines and strategically position them before the battle begins to target certain sections of enemy fortifications. On the overhead campaign map, the player can choose to bombard the walls, possibly creating breaches that can be used once the battle begins. If the character does not give in to charm alone, the player can employ the game's bartering system to try and bribe the character. The persuasion system also has to be used to court and marry characters. While Warband allows characters to marry, the player may also have children with their spouse in Bannerlord. If the player character dies, one of their children can inherit their soldiers and fiefs and become the new player character. Number 1. Ghost of Tsushima for the PS4 and PS5. Ghost of Tsushima is an action-adventure stealth game played from a third-person perspective. Ghost of Tsushima received praise for its visual and combat, but was criticized for its open-world activities. Ghost of Tsushima received several award nominations and wins. Featuring an open world, it follows Jin Sakai, a samurai on a quest to protect Tsushima Island during the first Mongol invasion of Japan. Characters can travel to different parts of the world on horseback. Players can also engage in confrontation with enemies using weapons such as Tai Chi, which can be used to chain up several series of fatal strikes after highlighting specific enemies. Alternatively, using stealth allows to evade enemies and strike them silently with tools such as firecrackers to create distractions, smoke bombs to disorient alerted foes, and kunai for striking multiple enemies. Unlike other games, the highest difficulty, Lethal, is not a difficulty in which enemies are especially difficult to cut down. Rather, it's a more realistic model in which the player and enemies do massive damage to each other, with all non-boss fights ending in 1 or 2 successful cuts. So these were our top 10 best third-person games of 2020. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you can join the League of Gamers squad and be a part of our channel. Thanks for watching!